Good morning. I call to order this regular scheduled meeting of the Lake Havasu City Planning and Zoning Commission for June 19th, 2024. At this time, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hennigan, please call the roll.
Commissioner Matthew Mitchell. Commissioner Susanna Ballard.
Present.
Commissioner Joan DeZuro.
Present.
Commissioner Paul Lair.
Here.
Commissioner Tiffany Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Lonnie Stevenson.
Here.
Commissioner J.P. Thornton.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Harris.
Here.
Vice Chair Medley.
Here.
Chair David Diaz.
Here. Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, any correspondence and announcements, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the June 11th meeting, the City Council approved the 2305 Victoria Farms Road rezone from light industrial to industrial, and the 2778 McCulloch Boulevard minor general plan amendment and rezone from R3 to R3 PD. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we all received the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any changes, deletions, or corrections? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
A second.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Ballard. Any further comments? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing and there is a structured order to this process. City staff will present each item. There will be time for the commissioners to ask questions of staff, and the applicant will have an opportunity to present their case to the commission. Once that is done, we will open a public hearing to give community members an opportunity to ask questions or provide input. I ask that anyone who wishes to speak limit their times to the microphone to once per item and keep their comments to less than 5 minutes. Please stay on point and refrain from discussing subject matter not pertinent to the item being considered. There will be an opportunity for the public to address the commission about other topics later on in the meeting. After public testimony is given, I will close the public hearing and bring the item back to the table for the staff's recommendations, further discussion amongst the commissioners, and eventually a motion to approve or disapprove. And thank you for adhering to this protocol. All right, the first item is ID 24-4307, a request to adopt resolution number 24-07, approving a conditional use permit an extension of time for Yard City, allowing an outdoor event area for a term not to exceed 30 days after the completion of the Downtown Catalyst project at 2101 McCulloch Boulevard North, Tract 100, Block 5, Lot 17, in the mixed-use Uptown McCulloch Main Street MU-UMS District. Mr. Gilbert, your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I start with that, I do have one other real quick announcement for the benefit of everybody here. The police department's maintenance supervisor did get the bathrooms functional, found that out just for the meeting. So they are operational. You don't have to worry about using
Key information.
Portable units. So for the benefit of everybody here, the bathrooms are working. On the map they have up on the screen, the subject property is undeveloped, but somewhat improved for events. The lot is located at 2101 McCulloch Boulevard North. The parcel is approximately 0.28 acres in size, has been used under a conditional use permit since 2019 for First Friday event hosting. Now with the Downtown Catalyst project having been approved, and that, if you can see the arrow up there, it's going to be over on the City Park property here. So just a few buildings down. That having been approved by the City Council and the funding for the project available, the applicant is having to extend the event's conditional use permit again until the catalyst work is completed, at which time they will relocate to that property. The site is set up for hosting outdoor events as shown on the site plan. There is a secure perimeter barrier both on McCulloch Boulevard and at the rear of the property adjacent to the parking and common area. And that's back here, the emergency exit, with a security entrance at each end. And there's one here on McCulloch, and there's one, the emergency exit back here. You can also see the beer serving window. So this is where they're going to be serving the beverages. All improvements to the vacant lot are temporary type that can be removed and relocated when the downtown catalyst project is complete. A condition of the resolution approving the CUP extension is that this lot be returned to its original condition upon moving, and that is over to the new catalyst site. Mr. Chairman, that's all there is on this extension request to a CUP. I'll get to the recommendations following hearing from the applicant and the public.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners to staff on this item? All right, seeing none, is the applicant here and would like to address the commission? Please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record.
James Gray, Director for the Partnership for Economic Development, GRAY. Just a couple things. Yard City was built as a demonstration place to show that there was a need for an event space in downtown. Obviously, that was pre-Catalyst. Now that that's being built, just a couple of interesting facts. We have held 40 events downtown. We did utilize a company called Placer AI that tracks cell phones and geofenced last December. And in the 3.5 hours that we geofenced it, we had 7,900 unique phone visits down there. That's a lot more than we thought we were getting. A lot of times when we're not using real tracking, we kind of throw, and no shame on this, but I always refer to it as a realtor number. Like, I don't know, I think it's 3,000 or 4,000, but we have really no idea how many people are visiting the actual event. We are going to be purchasing that software for next year so we can start tracking how many people are coming and going. But just wanted to give you some background on First Friday. It's music, art, food, and culture. And it's really an event that is directed towards the community. We do live in an incredibly vibrant events place, but so many of our events aren't necessarily focused at the people that live and work here. First Friday is directed straight back at the stakeholders that actually live here every day and support the artist community. And we feel like we've started in this first half decade of creating some community in downtown. So last thing I would say, I am very appreciative of the ownership group, the Janisex, who kind of bought into this vision very early on. They have, as Mr. Gilbert alluded to, they have agreed to put the property back to its original state once it's done. But because of the use, they look forward to bringing it back in a brand new development in the space now that they've seen all the use. And with that, unless you have any specific questions of me or anything I can address, that'll conclude my comments.
Okay, does any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, James. All right, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open up to the public. Does anyone from the public like to address the commission on this item at this time? Anyone? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of the application with the following conditions contained in the Planning Commission Resolution 24-07, which is a part of the packet. Number one, the use shall be granted an extension of time to operate for a term not to exceed 30 days after completion of the Downtown Catalyst project. In the event the Downtown Catalyst project does not come to fruition, this conditional use permit expires 2 years from the date of approval. Condition 2, gates shall remain locked when not in use. Condition 3, the parking area on this vacant lot is not required to be paved for this temporary use. Condition number 4, the subject lot shall be returned to its original condition with all temporary accoutrements removed following Yard City completing its relocation to the Downtown Catalyst on the city-owned property at 2117 McCulloch Boulevard North. And finally, condition number 5, have an annual fire inspection conducted by the city's fire department and comply with all findings within 30 days of inspection. Mr. Chairman, that completes the staff findings recommendations.
All right, thank you. Does the applicant agree and understand all those recommendations? All right, thank you, James. All right, I'm looking for a motion to either approve or disapprove.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ID 24-4307, a request to adopt resolution number 24-07, approving a conditional use permit and extension of time for Yard City, allowing an outdoor event area for a term not to exceed 30 days after the completion of the downtown Catalyst project at 2101 McCulloch Boulevard North, Track 100, Block 5, Lot 17, in the mixed-use Uptown McCulloch Main Street MU-UMS District, subject to the conditions as set forth by the Planning Department.
I second.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Ballard, with a second by Commissioner Zuro. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we are ready to vote.
The motion passes 7-0.
All right, good luck to you, James. All right, the next item is ID number 24-4308. A request for a major general plan amendment revising the future land use map designations for 1850 Bahama Avenue, Tract 115, Block 4, Lots 11 through 13, and 21 through 25, and Block 5, Lots 1 through 9, 14.08 acres, from high-density residential to resort-related mainland. Mr. Gilbert, your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start off my presentation by going over some administrative statements here. This is the first of 3 public hearings on this major general plan amendment application. The second public hearing will be held on July 17, 2024, also before the Planning Commission in the City Council meeting chambers at the Municipal Court Building. And actually, all subsequent meetings to this one will be at the Municipal Court Building. That will also include a zoning change and consideration of the general development plan for a proposed resort development. The third public hearing will be before the City Council on August 13, 2024, in the City Council meeting chambers at the Municipal Court Building. That will also include a zoning change consideration of the general development plan. Please note that no action is being taken today following this hearing, as this is the first step in amending the city's general plan. And the reason for that is this process is being done in accordance with state law, which requires multiple hearings. So the hearing today, data will be collected, it will be packaged, it will be presented, available at the next hearing on the matter, which will be July 17th for everyone's benefit here. Up on the slide I have up on the overhead now, the subject property is a group of smaller lots that have been combined into one parcel located at 1850 Bahama Avenue, comprises approximately 14.1 acres in total. I guess let me go back here and do some citing. Bahama runs here, as you can follow the arrow. Here's Lake Havasu Boulevard. Here's Industrial Boulevard here. And Bimini Lane dead ends into the property. And the subject parcel is right here. And across the street to the north, you have, this is the Sterilite building for orientation, and these are the storage unit complex. Regarding the general plan map, the subject property is shown as high-density residential land use category, and that is right here is the subject property. And the brown is all high density, so all this is the same category down here. That permits up to 20 dwelling units per acre and is compatible with a large part of the surrounding area. The applicant is requesting resort-related mainland land use category to accommodate a mixed commercial and residential resort-style development. To the north across Bahama Avenue is commercial mixed-use land use, and that's all the red you see here, with light industrial development upon it, such as storage units and large manufacturing assembly warehouse uses. To the east and west are high-density residential land uses, and that would be, to the west would be all these condo complexes down toward Lake Havasu Boulevard. And to the east is mostly vacant land, but there is some development there as you get up toward industrial. To the south is high-density residential land use, and that is here, but is primarily developed with single-family residential uses. So I'm going to advance this to the zoning map, which you probably notice is a little bit different from the map you just saw. This is the actual zoning overlying the land use map. The subject property is shown as residential multifamily, and that is here as the subject property. To the north across Bahama Avenue is light industrial, and that's all the orange you see labeled as LI. That's all light industrial zoning. And then to the east and west are residential multifamily. So that's all these condo developments west of the proposed project, all the way down to Lake Havasu Boulevard, which is over here. And to the east as well is mostly vacant ground, but there is some residential development. To the south is single-family residential zoning. And that is all the yellow you see labeled as R1. While this hearing is on the appropriateness of the general plan amendment today, I am including this single slide from the project so that everyone has a concept of, in general, what's being requested here. The applicant, when he does his presentation later, is probably going to have more information to show you in theirs. The applicant intends to construct a 3-phase resort development incorporating a surf pool, cliff diving feature, commercial activities, including restaurants, and the combination of condominiums and apartment units, although the details will be worked out later in the engineering phase. The full development plan and traffic study are included in the information provided online at the city's website with the Planning Commission packet for today's hearing. So that's all available for anyone that wants to go in and look at all the documentation they submitted for this hearing. Again, the hearing today is on the general plan amendment, the zoning and development plan changes that will come starting with the July 17th hearing next month. So there'll be no action on this taken today, but we're just collecting information from the residents. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have to present. And since there's no I do have a recommendation, but it's simply to forward all the data from this meeting to the next meeting. So I have nothing further on this. The applicant is present.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners to staff on this? All right. Is the applicant present? And if so, if they'd like to address the commission, please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record.
Hello, I'm Austin Springer with Studio KDA. That's SPRINGER. Like to thank Chris for that great presentation, heading us off. Great. Test. Oh, much better. Okay. As he mentioned, it's a resort condominium project. The ownership of the various units is still being considered. There's going to be 221 units in the full build out of the project, though right now the only thing that's sort of for sure is the phase one. Phase one is just going to include the first residential building, about 45 units, the primary wave amenity, which is a wave pool, a surf lagoon, and a cliff diving feature, as well as 2 restaurants and a sort of deli style marketplace intended to have people be able to do grab and go meals on their way down to the river. Just want to take this opportunity to address a few of the concerns that we heard at our neighborhood meeting that we held back in January. Though first I will reiterate what Chris said is that the scope of this meeting is just the general plan amendment. The reason for the general plan amendment from high density residential to resort related mainland is simply so that this project can be open to the public. Without that general plan amendment, all of the on-site amenities and food, all that would only be available to residents or visitors of the site. And it was important to us to have this be part of the community and not just be for people who are coming to visit or live on the site. That's the primary reason for us switching to resort-related mainland. We also want to make sure that people know that this is a vetted concept. There's another development currently under construction in Mesa, Arizona that has a similar wave pool technology. It's getting perfected there. It's already been installed in other places around the country, but it is state-of-the-art wave pool facility, and we think it should generate a lot of excitement for the community. We heard at our public meeting back in January that there's a lot of concerns about traffic, and we'll point to the fact that we were aware of that upfront and commissioned a traffic study. We worked with city traffic engineers to identify which intersections to study and establish the guidelines for that study. We looked at both the phase 1 build out, the full build out, and a future condition that projects, I think it's another 10 years into the future, that anticipates city growth and how the adjacent intersections will be impacted by our development. We looked at Bahama and Bimini, the small cul-de-sac there. We also looked at Bahama and Lake Havasu Avenue, as well as Bahama and Industrial. And we will be following all the recommendations from that traffic engineer. Furthermore, at our public hearing, we received some, what I'd say is helpful feedback about one of the conditions. There's a blind corner on the west end of the site on Bahama, where a couple of the residents made us aware that they currently already have some problems of people speeding around that corner, not being able to see, and pulling out into Bahama from there can be a little bit problematic. And we did have an ingress and egress portion of our site there they expressed some concerns about. And so we appreciated that feedback and are working with our traffic engineer to address that situation and make sure everything there is going to be safe. Couple notes about the density of the site. It's currently, and I will say that this is more related to the zoning hearing, but it's worth noting at all of our meetings. The current zoning is RM, and that allows for 20 units per acre, which is for our size site, it's just shy of 300 units. And our full build out of the project is proposing just 220 units, so somewhere around 75 units less than it is currently zoned for. When we first came to the site a few years ago, we took a meeting with the city and reached out to them to try to hear what their concerns are for development as a whole in the city of Lake Havasu. And one of the things they made us aware of is some issues that you guys have had with Airbnbs that are sometimes owned by people out of state, not managed well, and are causing lots of police calls in single-family residential neighborhoods. This is definitely something that we want to address and hope that our project can contribute to that situation getting better. We're going to be in direct competition with those Airbnbs, and we see our project sucking that sometimes rowdy behavior out of single-family homes in the neighborhoods where they're 5 and 10 feet away from other residences, and moving it to a professionally managed site where there's staff on site 24/7. There's always somebody there who can take a call if there's complaints from neighbors, and we have built significant buffers into the site where all the buildings are at least 100 feet away from any single-family residences. And we're building significant landscaping buffers and making a lot of efforts to try to decrease our impact on the neighborhoods. Additionally, the siting of the site is directly across the street from commercial and industrial facilities, as well as multifamily residential on two sides. And the only single-family adjacencies are across the ravine. And finally, on water usage, that was also presented as a little bit of a concern. We've met with the city, and they assure us that the city of Lake Havasu has more than enough water to accommodate our site. Their capacity is, they're very underutilized right now, and they have plenty of water in the system for our site, as well as much future growth as they're anticipating. And also that in general, we're proposing 220 units on site with just 2 pools, which compared to the general development of the city of Lake Havasu, there are very many single-family homes that have 1 unit and 1 pool. And so in terms of gallons to units, we're actually a fairly efficient use of water. That's about all I have. We're here to answer any questions that staff or the commissioners have, and also are looking forward to comments from the public and working with you guys moving forward to have a good project. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One question I want to ask. So you mentioned 220 units. What's the mix? Are some of these going to be like a full-time, like people could live there? That'd be basically their apartment or the condo, or is this a hotel? I'm confused on the language of the property. How much is residential? How much is hotel? How much is?
They're all being designed as apartment buildings. The exact ownership model is still up in the air as like funding becomes available and as we do market research. For the most part, the current iteration of them is mostly looking at more of a resort style development, especially around the amenity. Though we have other buildings in our phase 2, which definitely are better suited for condo mapping. The zoning and general plan amendment would allow us to do both, and we're planning on keeping the options open to make sure that, I mean, at the end of the day, what we want is for the site to be used, and we want people to be there. And so whatever stands the best chance of filling up the units is what we're going to go for.
And then at your public meeting that you had, roughly how many people showed up to that meeting where you asked for public input?
Maybe 30, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I think about 30.
All right. Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Ms. Wilson?
Well, I don't know that this is the hearing for this. It definitely has been a conversation that I have overheard. There is conversation about the height of these buildings.
Right.
Can you just touch on that for me, please?
Yeah, they're all proposed to be 5-story buildings. In general, the idea is, like I mentioned, we're coming in at about 75% of what the zoning allows for, the current zoning allows for in terms of density. We are trying to cluster that square footage and units into fewer buildings that go up to 5 stories so that it leaves more space on site for ample parking, landscape buffers, and the generous pool amenity.
Do you have a proposed height on that already? I mean, as far as...
Roughly 65 feet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other? Commissioner DeZuro?
I had a couple. Looking at, you mentioned opening it up for the marketplace, and I can understand the restaurants for the public if this gets passed.
Yeah.
But what about the wave pool and the dining thing? Is that also going to be open to our public kids if they want to come?
Absolutely. And that was an important part. That's why our first stage was this meeting, is because it's really important for the business that it's going to be open not just to out-of-towners or people who are maybe going to buy residences here. It's supposed to be for the entire community. And we think it'll be a huge draw. It's a very unique, you can count on fingers the number of these things in the country. As I mentioned before, there's one, the nearest one is opening up in the next month or two out in Mesa, done by the same project owners. And yeah, it allows people to actually go surfing like they're on the coast, but out here in Havasu. And we think that'll dovetail great with all the existing water sports.
And then on the traffic study, I noticed they did that in September. We're a snowbird town, so we get a lot more people in that live here through the winter time. Did they take into consideration, and I was reading the study and I didn't quite pick up if they did they take into consideration the additional traffic that they would consider on just the winter time, not counting the visitors and things that are coming in for that intersection area?
I'm not totally sure. I know at the very least the future one does, because that sort of anticipates all future growth. I couldn't say for certain.
Okay. Something that you might want to look at for the next meetings just to take, because that's one of the things that comes up is they tend to do the traffic studies in July and August or September. Not a lot of people around. So if we can make sure they're doing it at the height of our community moving, that's part of the thing I think that's important for everyone at that point.
Great.
And then the other thing is, if it's resort, concern I have is, how are you going, do you guys have a plan for staffing these things? Because one of the things the city has trouble with right now is finding people to do that. If you approve this and get it there, is it going to be able to be run appropriately? Like you said, people watching it to make sure the noise is down and all that. Are you confident you can find the people to staff it?
Yeah, one of the ownership partners runs an existing rental management company. That's, we've got a few people in the ownership group. We've got a couple people from the construction side of things. We've got a couple people who specialize in residential development, as well as these wave pool resorts. Like I said, the other one in Mesa. And then another big partner is somebody who specializes in short-term rental management. And so they have a lot of oversight and staffing resources. A lot of staffing and resources in that sense. Specific people have not been identified yet because we're still a few years out from this being constructed. But yes, the people who will be running this have a lot of experience in professional management.
Any other questions from any commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lair?
I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to the total height of the building and how it's calculated based on the benchmark in Bahama, and are you looking for any exceptions to height?
Not today, but yes. The way the height limit is calculated is the current height limit is 30 feet above 1 foot above the highest point of the road along the site. It's a bit of a weird way to calculate it, but essentially the far east end of the site is the high point of Bahama. You take the crest of the road, 1 foot above that, and then 30 feet above that, projected out across the whole site. Down at the lower end of the site, the west end of the site, that means we're allowed to have something like almost a 70-foot tall building. There's a significant drop off in grade throughout the site. Though near the top end of the site, it's closer to 30, 35 feet. We're seeking to essentially not have very tall buildings at the lower end of the site and shorter buildings at the top end of the site, and normalize everything to 5-story tall buildings. So the buildings on the upper end of the site, we're seeking an exemption, and the buildings down at the lower end are compliant. That being said, I will reiterate we'll be seeking that during the rezone hearing. That's the purpose of our rezone, is essentially to address the height issue. Whereas the general plan amendment is just to make sure this project can be open to the public.
Anyone else? All right. Seeing none, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing. We've had some people that signed up, so we'll call these people first, but everyone will have a chance to speak if you choose to. So the first person is Katrin Phillips. Katrin Phillips? I hope I'm saying your name right.
Good morning. Yes, thank you.
Please, first and last name, spell your last name for the record.
Will do. First name, Katrin, Katrin. Last name, Phillips, Phillips. Good morning, members of the council and everybody. My husband and I are full-time year-round residents on Biscayne Lane for the last 6 years. That is the one across the wash from the property in question. In reference to the project, I would like to raise 4 points, some of which have already been marginally addressed by Austin as a result of the January meeting, but for full disclosure, I'd like to raise all 4 points. I don't think any of them can be answered today, but I'd like to have them reviewed for a future July meeting, which we certainly plan to attend. It is my understanding that 150 postcards were sent out to the affected neighbors based on the 300-foot radius from or around the project address listed as 1850 Bahama Avenue. In removing the map on the city site, you can, I'm sure you're familiar with it, the radius. I noticed that actually excluded the Bahama Apartments, the members that were actually present during the original January meeting. And they had very valuable input, as Austin mentioned, the traffic concern on Dead Man's Curve. And I would move that they should be actively included in any further relation on this topic, as it is their backyard as well, and very closely. That same 300-foot radius, however, seems to also include a large number of storage units, which under city code are partially considered condos. So I would like to know how many of the total postcards were addressed to these storage units, which would be the ones basically part on the industrial side. I'm sure you'll agree that those are not residents that really care or have a vested interest in their neighborhood as far as development, noise pollution, noise, excuse me, noise and light pollution, et cetera. I would ask that they not be included when it comes to calculating the percentage of objecting neighbors, as we aim to move for a supermajority when this comes to vote, as we got the distinct impression on the January meeting that the overall response was a negative one from the neighbors affected. Speaking of light pollution, Havasu prides itself of being a dark skies community, with regulations such as bare incandescent light bulbs shall not be permitted in view of adjacent property, etc. I strongly feel that this project will not do our city any favors in that regard, and I would propose a study to be made to illustrate the light placement and glare and light pollution as opposed to a residential unit as what it is originally zoned for. Fourth, last but not least, water consumption. Austin has touched on it. My concern is not so much the pool, but the running of a resort on a day-to-day basis. We all know that when we're on vacation, we tend to shower and be a bit more liberal with towels and linens. And if that is all part of water consumption. So I would like to see a resort-style water consumption compared to the residential units that should be in place here. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Our next request to speak is Mr. Charles Taylor. Please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Charles Taylor, 1417 Murphy Drive. I've been a resident here for 24 years. I worked with Chip Solosky at the fire department 15 years ago. We did a lot of checking and made arrangements for this type of construction was talked about years ago. We have tried for 15 years to get Station 7 up on the hill, up on Murphy and Sloop Drive. As you can see, it's not open yet. We still don't even have a pumper to put up there. This is purely a public safety issue with me. And I'm not speaking for the fire department now. I'm speaking for myself. We're putting our firefighters under such pressure. Up on the hill now, we have $1 million homes. What is there, 150 of them up there now? A couple months ago, I was in a meeting up in a lady's house up there. It was a $4 million home. There's not a fire station anywhere near there. And Station 7, if it was open, would be serving that area. I just don't see how much more we can push the fire department. The guys in this kind of weather, you've got 12 minutes with 150, with gear on, 50 pounds of gear. We're putting our guys up against something they can't win. They still have to work a 24-hour shift. What if they get another call and they're all wrung out? It makes no sense to put a structure like this up in our city. We just can't support it public safety wise. And the police department's going to be up there too. So they're going to need additional personnel up there. Thanks for listening to me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. The next person is David Tobar. Please, first and last name, spell your last name for the record.
Last name Tobar, Tobar, David. I've been a resident for over 14 years. I live on Riverboat Drive. My concern is traffic, the noise. My other point is that Bahama has no signals at all on that premises. We're concerned about the lighting situation that's going to be causing some problems, the water problems. I don't think there's going to be enough parking for what they're existing to future development there. What time is the pool going to be closed? We already been inundated with some of the bars that have noise factor in industrial. Even Site 4, when they have the big car shows and boat shows, you can still hear the noise. This is going to be a really very detrimental that I'm concerned about the traffic and the noise. Are they going to be shutting down the pool at a certain hour? Am I correct? Usually it's 10 o'clock. Things are shut down for noise. I'm just concerned about that. And I don't think this should be put in that area. I don't think that's going to be successful. I'm more concerned about a lot of people are going to be coming in this area, and it's just not going to be feasible for them to do this in here. And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay, the next person is Marcia Bailey. Please spell your last name for the record.
Bailey. My husband and his family boated here before there was even a bridge. So we're not new to Lake Havasu. Then we were married and we've boated here for 40 years. We bought our first house 10 years ago, and I've been a full-time resident for 7 years, so I'm not new to Havasu, and I've seen the growth and the progress. I've attended community meetings. I've watched the meetings online.
I'm sorry, can you speak into the mic? It's hard. Yeah.
For the Planning and Zoning Committee and the City Council meetings. And I don't want to be one of those people that complains but never tries to be part of the solution, and that's why I'm here today. This isn't in my backyard at all. But I'm here to speak against the project. I'm not against growth or project, but I'm against growth or project or progress with no forward thinking or vision. The developments in the foothills that were built without adequate egress and no fire station. Now the developers are trying to disrupt neighborhoods to create egress so they can continue to build. Because there seems to be no forward thinking, the island is almost becoming a danger if there's some kind of an emergency there, because there's no egress and the traffic is a mess. And yet development continues on the island. One of the last big projects that was challenged by the residents was the 3-story apartment building on South McCulloch. And those in favor kept saying that there's a desperate need for affordable working class housing. Without this building, they would lose their employees and they would be unable to grow their business because of the lack of employees. And so now those current residents that live there are going to be deprived of the sanctity of their homes because they were told there's no other option or solution for these workers that we already have to take care of, and that they should be grateful for the developers for providing this. I read a Facebook post this weekend that was posted by a family who lost their pet because there was no vet care available in an emergency. They blamed the vets and they were angry and said that they didn't care about the animals. But the vets here can't take new clients because their schedules are maxed. These posts happen almost weekly with people having to go to Kingman or Vegas or California for help. I have friends that have gone to our emergency rooms and have waited incredible amounts of time only to be sent hours away to Bullhead City or even Phoenix to receive care because there's no surgeons available in an emergency. I've watched parents of working parents scramble to get their kids into summer and after school programs because they are first come, first serve, and there's not enough spaces for our working parents. So now we're talking about bringing one more development that needs more working class people who need more affordable housing, who need health care, who need vets, who need child care. And we have nowhere to house them. We don't have enough health care. We don't have enough veterinarian care. We don't have enough child care. And so far, it seems like the traffic studies have either been poorly done because of our multi-use visitors being summer and winter. They've been skirted or falsified or disregarded or ignored because of what's happening in our city. The city continues to allow these developers to compound these issues by building with no regard for proper infrastructure. Why are they not having to first make improvements to our infrastructure in order to build? Why can't they build affordable housing on these already zoned high-density housing lots? The developers don't care about the residents or our quality of life. They're here to make money, and I get that. So we are depending on the decisions of the elected officials to protect our city. And so far, it seems that the desires of the residents are falling on deaf ears. I'm hoping that perhaps today will be different and we can walk away with confidence, feeling that we have truly been heard. To my fellow residents, please educate yourself on who these developers are, who they're working with, and who is voting yes on these items. Primaries are in July, and it's important to vote for those who have the best interest of our city at heart. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Kevin McCurry. Please spell your last name for the record.
MC capital C URRY. I'm the current president of the Bahama Shores Homeowners Association at 1720 Bahama. I'm probably not going to be real popular because I believe that this project should go through, and the board believes it should go through. And there's concerns with construction traffic, quiet enjoyment of our property. We are directly affected traffic-wise from the construction through the full development where we live. We have 3 other projects in our direct vicinity. Right next door is 11 units going in. Up on Bimini is more units going in. And up on Bahama is more units going in that's south of this project. I have problems with the developer right next door to me. I have no access to, or no way to control what he does. In the worst case, I had to call out Lake Havasu PD to address a problem with a contractor. Quiet enjoyment of our property during the construction is a must in order for the board and for our citizens to want this project. If we can't sleep because these earth movers are working at 3 o'clock in the morning because it's 115 degrees in the afternoon, that doesn't work for us. They're going to be going up Bahama, no matter what you tell them and how they do it. They're going to go up Bahama. We're going to have contractors that are staying in our hotels that are going to be driving up Lake Havasu. For those, we're all citizens. Lake Havasu has a dip. So when you pull out from Bahama, you don't see this car, and then you get hit. We see it all snowbird season long. Snowbirds pull out, and they get hit. And then we've got Cars and Toys, which thinks that the slow lane or the curb lane is part of their egress to their property, where cars stack up right there. I don't see how this development can be made without extreme restrictions on how they build it. If they don't keep to quiet times, dust, dirt, parking on Bahama, they're going to be staging bottom dump. They're going to have large earth movers. They're going to have concrete trucks. This is a project that must be strictly managed. And I believe that a community-based committee needs to be developed to help manage what the contractors do. The developer is somebody here. The contractors are somebody here. And they're going to drive whatever street they want to drive with whatever trash blowing out of the back of their truck. These trucks have leprosy. They drop screws, they drop nails, they drop trash, they throw their bottles out. It is a constant problem you have when you live in a development area. And we're going to have 3 + 1, potentially all at the same time, coming up and down the same roads, Bimini, Bahama. I don't disagree with the traffic study, but I understand that stuff gets done when stuff gets done. Ultimately, there's got to be restriction of street parking on Bahama. Is there going to be live entertainment for this project? Exterior lighting is always an issue. We just had to update our exterior lighting, and it cost us a ton of money to stay within the confines of what the law is in Lake Havasu. The problem that is going to be the biggest is for the people who are right next door, right up on Bimini. Is the owner prepared to buy them? Buy the complexes, compensate the tenants, compensate the owners, move them away so that they aren't disrupted. I think that's an option that needs to be looked at. But the Bahama Shores Board, Matt, we discussed it. There's a certain inevitability of this project. We had no say in the other three that went up. We're hoping to have some say in this one and how it gets developed, because the developer can go do something else and we have no say on how he builds. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next speaker is, I'm going to butcher your last name. Dave, is it Windjammer or Windhammer? Winehammer. Thank you. Spell your last name.
Winehammer is spelled W-I-J, N as in Nancy, H-A-M as in Mary, E-R, first name Dave. Just not a yay or nay yet on this project. Mostly is a lot about traffic. I live on Rainbow Avenue North, so it's going to be built up behind the hills that we have already. Rainbow is a shortcut street for everyone to go up and down. It's already a busy street. We're feeling it's going to be more busier once this resort gets done. That will be one of my things. Another thing is on Lake Havasu Road, you have a middle medium in there that you guys built that is just going to make one direction coming out of Bahama, going one-way direction. So that's going to create a backlog is my question. The second one is I'm sorry, but we have so many businesses, chains and personal owned businesses that have, need to hire people and they can't do it. I know friends of mine who own a restaurant, they close down 2 days a week just because they don't have enough staff because they can't find any good staff in this town. And yet again, we want to put up this multi-billion-dollar or $1 million project where those people are going to come from. And if we do build it, they're going to take away from the private businesses and the small businesses in our town that made our town and go over there and then make it lose, the small ownerships in this business, in this town. Not only that is, when somebody mentioned about lighting, if it goes on the other side of the hill, the lighting of this project, because you're going to need street parking lamps, everything else, building lamps. It's going to be 5-story high, which I never heard can be that high in this town, but that's not for me to decide. But, the lighting and everything else that's going to occur, take away our skylight that we have nicely here in Havasu, probably why a lot of us moved here. The second option is the noise factor. Like a gentleman said, are they going to have venues here, rock concerts? Are they going to have, come on, everybody knows that if you have any kind of a water park, you're going to have music playing to entice people to come and see. So these are all my questions in here. This is something I'd like, the board also to look into and, kind of picture what it is for us residents who are full-time. I'm full-time here for the last 7 years. I'm pretty much planning to probably die here because I love this place. I don't care about the heat. It's fine with me, but I'd like to see something more better than just going ahead and building something just to bring in people, because we don't have enough people to survive the staff as it is. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. The next person is Sandra Blair. Please spell your last name for the record.
Sandra Blair, B-L-A-I-R. A lot of what I have to say has been said. Water's a biggie. He's saying we have lots for the last 10, 15 years. I've been hearing, cut your water, we need water. So, and you guys have approved so many projects that still haven't been built. They're not filled. You don't have full consumption. Riviera, I mean, how much water are they going to use when they finally all get built? You got all these others. I just really see you're overflowing the water and getting ahead of what we can do. That's one. He says only 220 units. When you got 6 buildings at 5 stories, that's 30 floors. You're only going to have 5 or 6 units per floor. That don't seem right. So I would really pay attention to really how many people they're going to put in there. I know the taxpayers just got done paying for a big redo on Acoma, which was very needed. Putting in lights. I think you're going to have the same thing with industrial. So I believe you should require the developers to pay for that instead of letting them come in. And then us taxpayers go back and pay for all the improvements needed. What else? The lighting, which doesn't get enforced in Havasu. We have lighting all around us that is up and bright and runs 24/7, and nobody drives around and does anything. And I don't want to be turning in on my neighbors. It just, to me, that's your code enforcement person that needs to do that and actually pay attention. Maybe work some nights that you see the lights and you can tell. I can see lights all over. You got that one park that has lights that I'm a mile and a half away and I see them. It's really bad, the lighting. Yeah, the traffic. I know you also have on Lake Havasu Avenue, right before this, where this traffic would be coming from downtown on it, where it cuts down to 1 lane because there's one building that's so big and sticks out so far. You can't make it 2 lanes like the rest of the highway. So it had just too many things that I think to bring this kind of development in isn't good.
Okay, thank you. All right, that was the last person that signed up, but anyone that wishes to speak is welcome to come. Please come to the podium, state your first and last name, and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Johanna Mitchell, Mitchell. My first name is Johanna. I live in the Grand Bahamas on Bahama Avenue. And my main concern is the traffic. The intersection of Lake Havasu Avenue and Bahama. You take your life in your hands every time you pull out. Between the car wash doing U-turns, the car wash parking on our street, and the hill, you can't see. You have to pull out into the number 2 lane to see to pull out. If you're coming from the north and you want to turn left onto Bahama, you're sitting in the left turn lane and you're playing chicken with the southbound lane because it's offset. The worst thing they ever did was put that divider in. And that's all I have to say. Oh, plus, we're a racetrack because people, instead of going to the light at Industrial, they take Bahama. And it's a 25-mile speed limit, but they sometimes go 50 or even 60. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Please approach the podium, first and last name, and spell your last name for the record.
First name is John, last name is Lawson, Lawson. I live in the Grand Bahama condos also. And I'm going to go ditto to everything that has been said here, but I'm going to add a few of my own. Okay. The developer said at his meeting in January, I asked the question, is this going to be a timeshare? How is ownership going to be owned? At that time, he said no timeshare. It would be owned by the resort and be used as like a hotel. Okay. And I think I heard here today that they're still working out the ownership part. I think I heard that. So I don't know what that plays into how you are going to look at it, but it's a concern. I'm a common sense person. The city sets certain guidelines in zoning. Now they come in with this big project. I'll go on record, I'm not in favor of it, mainly because of what it's going to cause to the surrounding area and the infrastructure. Infrastructure meaning street. You got a 2-lane road between Industrial and Lake Havasu Avenue. And yes, it is a racetrack at times. Somebody mentioned the one curve is Dead Man's Curve. Well, yeah, I've been an owner there in Grand Bahama Condos for 12 years. And I'm really kind of surprised that there hasn't been a major pile up there. But it may happen someday because the cars do fly up and down that street. And the other thing, there's a lot of things. But in the last 2 years, just before Dead Man's Curve, we have a rock wall that is our perimeter. In the last 2 years, that wall has been hit by a car driving on Bahama Avenue. The most recent one was just back in March. Basically a hit and run. Knocked down the wall, about 12 feet of it. And we had some yellow paint there. I do have a copy of my report to the police about that incident, the one that happened last year. I didn't make any report to it. And just to state, I am on the board at Grand Bahama Condos. But the traffic is scary. It's posted 25 down as you get onto it at Lake Havasu Avenue. It's posted 20 miles an hour for Dead Man's Curve. Up at Industrial, it's posted 25, and the same with posting for that curve. I don't know where the city can even come close to a traffic study that would allow this project. I just, common sense. And I think it was Commissioner here that said, this traffic studies, are they done, with our full population here of snowbirds? Okay. I just don't see how it can happen. You got a 2-lane road and you're going to have this draw bringing in cars, a lot of cars. They're hoping a lot of cars. So, for that reason, traffic, yes. Lighting, yes. That's could be a problem. Noise factor, yes. There's got to be someplace better in the city to put this. I know that this property was bought several years ago, and they had planned to put in homes up through there. Some of them smaller, and up at the top, bigger homes, which would enjoy the lake view from up there. It's beautiful from up there. This project also, the people who own the lots just on the side of the Padori house there, they have them up for sale. They have a sign there. They have pre-approved plans and everything. If they put up 5-story buildings there, those lots to Lakeview is gone. You know, I think all this needs to be taken into consideration. Was that
That's your time,
up?
yes. Yeah.
Okay, can I have an extension?
Well, we're not the IRS. No.
No, but in closing, I'm going to say common sense has to prevail. It's this is something that is going to be way too big for the infrastructure that's there.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Just approach the podium. Yeah, everyone just get in line if you want to get up and talk. And state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record.
It's Jim Foltz, Foltz. I'm a year-round resident here, like most of us, because we're here at this time of year. I've got a couple of concerns. Number one is the lighting. I think is an absolute must look at very carefully and how that's going to be proposed. I can't imagine a facility that large not radiating a whole bunch of extra light out. That's a tough one. I love going out in the evening and looking up and see all the stars and everything we can see here. The other really big problem that I see, the number one problem, is the height of these buildings. You start putting 5-story buildings up in this town, and you're going to destroy 90% of what we have in the way of view of that river that we all live here and enjoy. That is going to be a nightmare. People are going to come in and start building 5, 6, 7. They're going to go to 7 stories if they can. You let these developers do whatever they want, which has been going on lately. You've got to stop this. You can't allow 5-story buildings. It's just, if you look back at what McCulloch did when he started this whole project many, many years ago, before any of us were here, he had a ceiling on how high he would allow a building to be. And he held to it until he passed away. It was always maintained. Now they've put these 3-story, 4-story buildings down there on the river and, the hotels and stuff. That blocked a lot of views and it took a lot of heat for it. We need to control that. We need to watch and make sure that we don't allow that to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. After her, yeah. Go ahead, ma'am. And that's first and last name. Spell your last name for the record, please.
My name's Patricia Broder, B as in boy, Rodeur. I've lived here since 83. And I think you downplayed the water, because I remember when we couldn't water our grass, if you had any, you couldn't wash a car, you couldn't do any of that. And that's before we had all these people. The other thing I wanted to say is I grew up with a realtor developer, my mother, and she worked with Tom Flatley. And one of the things they did to develop, they had to provide police, they had fire, and they had to provide land for school and something else with help. I just think we should take that into consideration because we need the police and the fire. You can't have all the people without that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. You go ahead. You've been raising your hand. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name's Bob Smith, Smith. Now, I haven't been here as long as her. I only been here 26 years. Lighting, I used to could lay out and watch the stars at night. Not no more because there's too many lights. My question is, as far as I know, we live in the driest state in the country, period. We've been in a drought for years. There's no end to it coming in sight. And yet you want to put a project in that's going to use millions and millions of gallons of water a year. How much of that water is going to be wasted to evaporation? Every year it's going to be evaporated. Now you get talking traffic. Acoma and Industrial intersection is one of the worst in town. Every school day, cars back up 10, 15, 20 deep at that intersection. And you're going to dump more cars on there coming out of a project that's probably going to have anywhere 600-800 cars a day going to it. And you're going to dump more on Industrial, a 2-lane road, Bahama, a 2-lane road, and Havasu, it's just a nightmare by itself. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. First and last name, please, and spell your last name.
Kelly Chapman, Chapman. Good morning. I have a big concern of the complex being the size and the project, the cost of that to be offering supposedly affordable housing. I don't find that the units, which was not really explained, the unit blend, whether it's a townhome or is it really going to be apartments, that was never clarified. That was a roundabout way of discussing that it's just 221 units. So, I mean, you're talking, roughly 2 people per unit? I own multifamily apartment buildings here in Havasu. I buy the properties, I fix them up, rehab them that they're a nice complex instead of some of these places that are just run down in a mess. What I'm going to see happen in my eyes with this kind of project being built is it's going to run out all these older apartment buildings. They are all going to go to a mess. People are going to think they're going to have affordable housing in here, maybe initially at the very get-go to get in. And then, of course, the rents are going to be raised. There's not enough jobs in this city or pay to even offer to fill in 220 units here. I mean, I'm having a hard time filling even one right now because of frequent rents, places for rent in town. Now that they're building all these other projects, these other apartment buildings, there's not enough, the services here. I mean, I'm a full-time resident here now. I haven't been for a long time, but I'm very much questioning even living here because of the concerns of the doctor issues, the vets. Everything is so taxed here. It just doesn't seem a possibility for something like this to come in. I don't live near the project, but I think I'm very concerned about our fire and our safety and everything else that people have brought to the attention. I think it's a big problem. It's a huge concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Sir, please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record.
Gary Davis, Davis. I live right behind this project where it's going in.
Speak into the mic, please.
I live right behind this project where it's going in. Now, I bet none of you have a 5-story building behind your house. Now, these people looking down in your backyard. I just spent a lot of money remodeling my house, and I do not want a 5-story building to look at. And everybody here is talking about the lighting. My wife said, hey, we've been here over 21 years, and we used to be able to see the stars pretty good, but the element light, just the houses alone, is blocking our view. They talk about what's going to happen on the streets. It's going to be a mess. None of you guys are living in it. We are. Let me tell you, we don't like it. We don't like it at all. It seems like none of us have a choice. You just shove this down our throat. And I'm one guy that says, I don't like it. It's not fair. It's not right. Not when I got a full desert out here, they can go put anything in. They got to put it in our backyard, right on that hill it's been marked for residential for years. So why didn't they put in houses? No, now they want to put in a commercial complex, and everybody's right about the water. And you all know it. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the parking. I hear this place is going to give you 1.5 parking, this complex. Now, what is that, a car and a motorcycle? Where's the people going to park? You know these people are going to bring boats and jet skis and all kinds of stuff in here. You know it. We live on a lake. I hope you all are reasonable about what's going to happen here because we live there. Okay, and there's a lot of people right now that are out of town that can't speak up for them. And I hope I can speak up for them because I'm sure they're not going to like it. And all the bushes and all the stuff you're going to put up ain't going to stop the noise. Hell, I could hear the noise down there on the island from my house. The noise is going to be outrageous, and so is the lighting. And don't let them fool you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, sir. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Yeah, I'm Robert Peterson, Peterson, and thank you for this last. I'll try not to go on too long. I haven't been a resident for more than 10 years, but my family and their close friends bought empty lots here before McCullough was paved, and I visited this town over the years since it was incorporated, and I've seen things happen.
Speaking of the mic, you get closer to the mic.
I'm sorry. I've seen a lot happen over the many years since Mr. McCullough started this, and when my family flew in, landed on the island in a prop plane to inspect the area. I myself am a retired physician. I spent a fair amount of my time as an aeromedical physician, and I had to deal with public safety, public health, inspections, and a number of things besides just being a doctor and working emergency services and so forth. So I have some background in worrying about what the impact of this kind of project and the general growth has on our community. As has been stated by others already, it's a concern as far as access for healthcare, medical care. I wonder how well our fire department is going to be set for dealing with tall building fires. They originally were set up for the 30-foot height, and now we have a 4-story full built in wood, the view, with older folks that may have trouble evacuating on their own. And if that structure were to be a fire, it could be a major issue on what equipment we have now. These folks are talking about building a 5-story building. Just from the fire safety viewpoint, that's an issue for me, as probably better stated by some of our previous commenters. Traffic, certainly a big issue, but what does this mean? And lighting and whatnot. But if this development goes through, as somebody just said very recently, what's next? You really need to amend the city code so we can get away from this, the top of the property, so now we can build 5 stories because it meets code. It should be the center of the property height and nothing exceeds a certain height for safety measures, for view reasons, for a number of reasons. This is ridiculous. And it doesn't belong in this area. Probably doesn't belong in this town anywhere if we're going to maintain what few threads we have of the idea of this being a great place for retirement, a great place for small business and light industrial, and none of this works to promote that. It detracts from it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Tony Berger, Berger. I live on the south side, but I have a lot of problems with this. I was reading the other day where the city wanted an outdoor pool. Was this it? And if this is open to the public, where's all the parking for the public? Because the parking they have is for the people that are going to be there, not the public. And if you're going to do shopping, where's the parking for the shopping? That's not even talking about the traffic. I'm talking about parking alone is bad. And I feel like he almost made fun of us when he said, well, the top of the property's up here, so we're okay. I don't want to be tricked like that. I don't find that funny. I think that we need to figure out what we want for this town and stick to it and try and make the people here proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission? Anyone else like to address the commission? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment. And I do want to, before I close it completely, does the developer like to address any of the concerns that was just talked about by all these people?
Again, Austin Springer, that's S-P-R-I-N-G-E-R. Thanks for all your comments. We understand that there's a lot of concerns. Hopefully, maybe I can put a couple of them to rest or at least show you that we're hearing them. Notifying boundary, that one's an easy one. We're happy to include any members of the public. I think we're less inclined to be specifically excluding anybody. We want this to be an inclusive process, and we're open to having any members of the community be here and participating. The dark skies ordinance, sort of, that's a future thing. It's not relating to our general plan amendment or the rezone that we're seeking, but we 100% plan on complying with the city's ordinance. We're really glad that the city does have an ordinance, so it sets guidelines that we know we can comply with, and we plan on meeting those fully. Water usage, I thought that was a great comment about the laundry. I will reiterate that we've met with the city, and I can't speak to the specifics of the engineering of the city's water supply, but they ensure us that it has a capacity for up to 100,000 residents, which is well in excess of what we have here now, and that is more than enough water for our site. But I think it's a great comment about the resort style use and looking at our practices in terms of laundry, and we're totally open to looking at water efficient laundry facilities and water efficient laundry practices. As far as public safety, this project will be contributing heavily to the city's tax base and be paying a bunch of fees as we go through the construction process. And we're hopeful that that extra tax base and the presence of more residents might encourage the city to open this Fire Station 7. That'd be great, though it's not something directly in our control. And then in reference to fire safety in general, 5-story buildings, it's not a concern for ladder heights. 5-story buildings aren't meant to be fought from the outside. They're meant to be fought from the inside. They have significant fire safety requirements built into the building code that makes these buildings actually significantly more safe than single-family homes. Single-family homes are the most fire-prone, whereas these 5-story buildings, when you go from 4 to 5 stories, there's a lot of extra requirements, and these buildings would be very safe for people, even people with mobility concerns. Traffic, again, we hear the comments. And we're definitely going to be continuing to work with our traffic engineer to make sure that those are all fully addressed. And same with construction traffic. We're totally open to having a conversation with the adjacent neighbors, and we want to hear your concerns and see what we can do to work with you. Noise concerns. Again, we think this is moving noise that is existing in the residential neighborhoods that is close to other houses away from them. And so we think on the whole, this is putting a use where it should be and concentrating it where it should be, as opposed to spread out where it's a bunch of different people's problems. There were some questions about ownership. I want to stress that this is not going to be a timeshare project. There's a possibility that some of them will be condos, but those would be either single owner condos or a single owner for the entire site. Timeshares are not one of the options being considered. Just want to clarify also, when we said open to the public for the amenity, we aren't saying that this would be like a public pool, but rather this is a commercial facility, a business that for a fee, anybody can come in and use. And finally, the issue about workforce housing, we totally hear that. And our intention is that this development is going to be in competition, as I said, with the Airbnbs that are throughout the city right now that are taking up single family homes. It is extremely difficult to build affordable housing or workforce housing and make a profit on it these days. With the construction costs the way they are and the cost of capital, it's tough to make those numbers work. What we can do is build a product that we hope will take the Airbnbs out of the residential communities and hopefully open up those existing Airbnbs to more workforce housing. It's better to make existing stock your workforce and affordable housing as opposed to new construction. That it's really tough to make the numbers work on that. Yep, and that's all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're not voting on anything today. This is the first meeting of a required 2-meeting process at 2 separate locations. So this serves the first part of that. The next meeting will be mid-July, same type of thing, public hearing. So the motion I'm going to be looking for, basically, correct me if I'm wrong, is just to have the information and minutes of this meeting included in the overall minutes from both meetings. So, Commissioner Ballard.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion that the complete minutes from this meeting be compiled and be presented and ready for review at the July next meeting to address this proposal.
I'll second that.
Directing that a permanent record of the proceedings of this public hearing be prepared and forwarded to the second public hearing on this item scheduled for July 17th, 2024 in the City Council meeting chambers at the Municipal Court Building.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Ballard with a second by Commissioner Harris. Any further discussion from the commissioners? Okay, we're ready to vote.
The motion to give direction passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. All right, that's the last item on the agenda. Now I'm going to open up to a call to the public. And this is an opportunity for the public to address the commission about a topic not on today's agenda. We are unable to respond directly or have a two-way conversation. If you would like to speak, please approach the podium and spell your last name for the record. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come up and call to the public? Yes.
Sandra Blair, BLAIR. One of my questions has to do with all this development going on. Do you guys assess impact fees for all the impact it has to get your fire departments running, build your schools? I built a place up in Washington State. It cost me $25,000 before I touched, just to get approved. In impact fees to help with all the extra schools needed, the fire departments needed, the roads needed. It should all be added on so that the old residents aren't paying for all this new development while the developer takes off back to California with our money. You know, and then we are supporting what they built. I think you need to go and think about bringing in impact fees. They're registered by how many houses you're building per house, because per person you are adding to the roads, the fire, everything. And I, just think there's a lot of expense that developers should pay for, not the general public.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to come up for call to the public? Yes, sir. Spell your last name for the record, first and last.
LAWSON, first name John. I have a question. Your July 17th meeting and your August meeting, I don't remember the date on it. Is there any way for us to participate in that meeting while it's going on? We're not going to be around. Is there any way that we can participate in the meeting without being here?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there is limited availability to access remotely at the other location which these meetings will be at. That's something that at the end of this meeting we can discuss with our technology expert who's in the back room back there to see how many people can be on at one time. But another method is to provide a written email or letter to staff that will be provided to the Planning Commission or Council, whichever meeting it is.
Where would I get that email address to do that?
I will get with you after the meeting, provide that information.
Okay, thank you very much. Perfect.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Please say your first and last name and spell your last name.
First name is Jim, last name Mitchell, Mitchell.
and I live next door to the project or the potential project. It's just a question. There's a lot of discussion of the traffic survey. Where can one find that traffic survey, and has it actually been done, or is it just a proposal?
We could talk to you after the meeting. You could talk to the people after the meeting. Yeah.
So we're in Call the Public right now.
Yeah.
And so the purpose of Call the Public is for you to get up and express any concerns that you might have to the commission, but they can't have a conversation with you. We're no longer in the public hearing of the item. And I know it's confusing.
Yeah.
Staff can come up after the meeting and answer your questions. But I'm sorry, that's why the commission can't answer you. They're not allowed to.
It's
during this
just a
portion of the
one-way
meeting.
conversation right now. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Smith, S-M-I-T-H. About her impact fees, I always wondered the same thing. Why the city did not put impact fees on all the multi-million-dollar homes going on the island. If they'd had a $20,000 or $30,000 impact fee on each one, how much money would that be toward the second bridge? Those homes are producing 400 or 500 cars a day across that bridge because the cars traveling back and forth, and they're still not paying nothing for it. Put an impact fee on the new homes out there and other places and get some money out of it to pay for the bridge instead of sticking taxpayers with it.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Dave Weinhammer, Wijnhamer. One question I did have, I didn't ever get a postcard, so maybe extending the area coverage when things are happening in our town to maybe more of a broader spec. I guess he said something like 300 feet or something like that, 300. I don't know what it was, but I never got a postcard. I live on Rainbow Avenue, so it affects me, and I never got a postcard. And like I said, I live here all week long. I work for a school board. I never got a postcard for this, so I hopefully that you guys can expand the area that they need to give notice to people, because otherwise, if it wasn't for Facebook, I wouldn't have known about this meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Gilbert, any reviews for upcoming meetings?
I do have one thing I want to say first regarding meeting locations, just so everybody's aware. All the future meetings on July 17th and on August 13th will be at the second floor of the municipal court building. That's the new council chambers, started being used earlier this year. And just so everybody's aware who hasn't been there yet, has its own parking lot. If there's overflow up, it's the city hall lot if you need it. And there is security, so you have to go through a security because it's a court building, but it's on the second floor of that structure. So all the future meetings on this will be held there, just for everybody's information. Regarding future meetings, Mr. Chairman, the July 3rd meeting is canceled. There are no items on the agenda, and then we will come back for the July 17th meeting at the other location, which will have the continuation of the second hearing of this Bahama hearing, as well as the rezone component of that. And there will be additional items on the agenda as well.
All right. Thank you. Seeing no other business, this meeting is adjourned.